Let's return now to more serious matters, that growing crisis in Zimbabwe. Joining us in the studio, Lance Guma, who's a journalist from Shortwave Radio Africa. Lance, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. You run a programme where people call from Zimbabwe, phone-ins, telling you what the latest picture is. I mean, build for us a picture of Zimbabwe at the moment.
Well, this is what happens when you have a failed state. Everything in Zimbabwe has collapsed. The health system, the education system, everything that you can think about in terms of what is needed for a normal country to run has been run to the ground. So you have a cholera epidemic, which we've had cholera cases before, but now we have a scenario where we do not have the capacity to deal with this. And for several weeks, the government was playing politics, not wanting to admit the seriousness of this outbreak. And they've now belatedly declared it a national emergency, admitting that it's beyond their capacity to resolve.
And I gather even cases of anthrax are breaking out now.
Cases of anthrax in the Binga area, the entire Zambezi Valley is at risk, and they've had to quarantine the area off. So you're looking at cholera outbreak, anthrax, cash shortages, power cuts, water cuts, HIV, AIDS, starvation, it's the works.
Unbelievable, isn't it, really? And this was, let's remind people, at one time, the breadbasket of Africa. This was a very advanced nation that fed and supplied a lot of other countries in Africa. Yeah,
from a breadbasket to a basket case.
Basket case, yeah. Now, it seems that the international community had been hoping that there would be an African solution to this, a southern African solution, that Thabo Mbeki maybe would see, get Mugabe to see sense. That has failed, it seems.
Yeah, that has failed, and I think what is now needed is a paradigm shift where this time for African solutions to African problems has clearly failed. The African leaders have shown that they do not have the courage to confront Mugabe. Botswana's Foreign Affairs Minister, Pandu Sikelemani, admitted that privately African leaders criticize Mugabe, but the moment they come to a public meeting or come face-to-face with him, they do not have the courage to tell him to his face.
Why is that? I mean, is he still seen, as the freedom fighter? Is that the problem? There's still this perception with any other African countries?
I think that is part of the problem, but also several of these countries do not have what I would call proper democratic standards themselves. So it's a case of look who's talking now. And even Mugabe at the African Union summit last time confronted them and said, let me see the one who lifts a finger first. But I think more worryingly is the attitude of South Africa. I think South Africa towards the Zimbabwean crisis is behaving as if they're in a political Disneyland, really. They have a very Mickey Mouse assessment of the situation. I don't think they appreciate the problem. The problem is you have Mugabe and ZANU-PF who lost the elections in March, and they are clinging on to power. That is the bottom line.
And do you think that there was a hope or a thought that the power-sharing deal with the ZANU-PF and MDC would actually work, that there would be some kind of advance and cabinet posts would go to others, and Changrai and so on, that the hope was that would work in practice?
I think out of desperation, people were willing to embrace the power-sharing deal as a halfway measure or a halfway house to solving the Zimbabwean problem. But I think in terms of the allocation of cabinet portfolios, Mugabe unilaterally grabbed the influential portfolios, Home Affairs, Defense, and clearly showed that he was not interested in a genuine power-sharing deal. And it is very clear he just wants Morgan Tsvangirai and the MDC as window dressing.
But he still wants the apparatus of the state.
Exactly, and they've laden the MDC with social and economic ministries to get them to clean up their own mess while he holds on to key ministries like defense and state security. Now,
Gordon Brown saying international solution is needed. We've heard from Condoleezza Rice as well. But I guess the problem is that all Mugabe would say is it's colonialism again. Look what these other countries are saying to us, dictating to us.
I think Gordon Brown is right on track, but I think we need to take it a step further, because we've had 8 years of condemning Mugabe. And Mugabe thrives on condemnation, as you are saying, because every time he gets an international platform, that's his time to shine and talk about colonialism and history. But I think, like what Kenya's Prime Minister Raila Odinga said when he suggested that an African peacekeeping force be sent in, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu has also talked about using military action. That is what we need. We need practical solutions about how this man should be removed from power.
Because and the appetite may be there in the rest of Africa now to see that take place.
Well, I don't know about the rest of Africa, but I think there's a growing chorus. We've got Botswana, we've got Senegal, we've got Kenya, we've got Tanzania to some extent, and we had the late Zambian president, Mwanawasa, also speaking up. So there's a growing chorus. We just don't know why it never translates into something at regional or African Union summits.
Yeah. Lance, for that assessment, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Very interesting. And, of course, we'll speak again as we see what happens in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much indeed.